Hi, this is Suchi and today I am back with another video on exception handling in Python. So in our previous video, we have discussed on simple exception handling in Python, where we were just using try and except block. So today we will look more into specific exception handling. So let's take this example, which we discussed in our previous video. So if I remove this except block here, let us see what is the exact exception is being returned, being thrown by these two lines of code. So if I run this is fine. Now if I change it to 0, it will throw a 0 division error. Let me run it. So here you can see this is throwing a 0 division error. So this is the exception name. Now let us handle this exception. So I am putting these statements inside a try block, and now I will put the except block over here and print now let me just put this lines of code outside the try block. So this will do the same thing. As you can see, the exception will occur because we have put this print statement. Exception occurred here, so it is being executed in the except block. But we have no way to determine whether this is a 0 division exception or something else. So let's say I am putting this instead. So b of 0. Now, as you can see, if I do this outside the try block, just let me comment it out. It will work in the similar manner. It will give the 0 division error because the 0th index of b is having the value 0. So b of 0 is 0. That is why it is throwing a 0 division error. So print a and b for your understanding. So here you can see A is 7 and B is a list with a single element, and that element is 0. Now if I change this element to 1, it will be successfully executed because 7 divided by 1 is 7. If I change it to some other value, let's say 9, it will be successfully executed. But if it is 0, it is throw a 0 division error. Now, what if we do not have any element in B? If B is empty. So let me just remove this. Now B is empty. B of 0 should throw an index error. So let us see what happens. Here you can see B is empty and B of 0 is throwing the index error, list index out of range, because B does not have any element at all. So there is no element at 0th index in B. That is why it is throwing an index error. What if we put a string value here? Let's say I'm putting something random here. And then let me run this. So here it is trying to divide an integer with a string. So it will now throw an type error. So here you can see it is saying unsupported operand types for division, where we are trying to divide integer with a string. So it is giving a different error, which is type error. So different type of errors are occurring based on different type of situations. So let me just put this thing here. If we do not have anything inside B, then it will throw an index error. So it will be an index error if it is not having any element at all. Now, if we are having 0 at the first index or 0th index, then it will be a 0 division error. And if B is fine, if B is having some value, let's say 4, then it won't be throwing any error. No error. Okay. So let me just comment out all other things here. So here you can see if B is having a valid value, that is not going to throw any error. But if we go with this, it will throw an 0 division error. So here you can see 0 division error is come. If we go with the above one, the empty list, you can see there is an index error. Now, if we go with this one, where we have a string value in the 0th index of B, you can see a type error. So there are different type of errors occurring based on different type of values in B. Now, if we want to know which type of error occurred, basically, we do not know what is the value of A and B, and we want to know because that might be coming from some other function output or some other module. So we do not know what kind of error is occurring. In that scenario, if we want to know, if we wish to know which type of error is occurring, and based on that we need to handle that particular, and based on the situation we need to handle it, then we also need to catch the exception type, or we also need to catch the exception object so that we can identify which type of exception has occurred. So let me just put B as a 0 as of now. Now, if we do this, if we use this try and except statement, here you can see we know exception occurred, but which type of exception occurred, we do not have any idea. If we change it to a string also, it will say exception occurred, but which type of exception occurred, we do not know. Even if we remove this, it is just saying exception occurred. So our code is not able to understand which type of exception is occurring, and it is not able to understand, it is not able to handle that separately. So if we want to understand, if we wish to understand which type of exception is occurring, we can use this syntax. We have to add this thing here. The exception is nothing but the class, exception class, and as some variable name, in which variable we want to catch the exception. So we can give any name over here. Let's say EX. You can give anything here. You can give your name as well. So here we can give some name also. Okay. If we do that, exception occurred, we can also add what exception occurred. Here it is saying list index out of range. So we are able to identify which exception has occurred when we do this. So let me just have it as E. So here you can see we can actually catch the exception object and we can work with that as well. So this is one way of identifying which type of exception occurred. And if we just need to know which type of exception has occurred and we do not need to handle them separately, then it is fine to have just this syntax. But if we want to handle specific type of exception in a particular block and we do not want to handle the other type of exceptions, in that scenario, we have another way to catch the exception. So let me show you that. So in this case, if I just put a 0 here, you can see division by 0 this is the exception type. Or if we put this, any string here, it will say unsupported operand types, int and string. We cannot have a division operation between int and string. So we can identify the exception type with this statement. But now, if we wish to handle the different exceptions differently, then what we need to do? So we can do that as well. Let me just show you how. So let's say we can say exception and the particular exception type that we wish to handle. For example, this is empty, so it is going to throw an index error. So we will write index error. And we can give different, and here also we can add, we can catch the object with an as expression as IE. Okay, we can do something like this. We can say index error occurred, or we can also say B is an empty list So here you can see the index error is catched, index error is handled in this exception block, where it is printing whatever message we are putting inside this error. B is an empty list, and then the exception we are printing here. Now, let's say we have a 0 over here with the same syntax. Let me copy this. If we have a 0 here, so this is not going to throw index error, but a zero division error, as we already know. So what will happen in this case? We have only handled index error. So zero division error is not handled here. That's why it will be raised. So in the try catch, it is from the try catch, it is throwing zero division error, and the exception block is only handling index error. So what will happen to the zero division error? It will be raised. As you can see, zero division error is raised here. What if we add another except block? What if we want to handle both of them? Any of them is occurring, we should handle them separately. So in that case, we can add multiple except block here. So here we can write zero division error. So first this exception block will be checked. If it is index error, it will go inside this exception block and it will execute this statement. If it is not an index error, it will go to this exception block, and this, if this is a zero division error, it will execute the statement written inside this block. Let me just have this. So here I will write error B is B of 0 is 0. And then we can also print the exception here. So we can see now it is being handled as we have expected. So this is the message what we are printing here. Now if B is empty, what will happen? You can see this line is getting executed, this one, because it is an index error. So it is saying B is empty list. B is an empty list. And when we are putting a 0 over here, it is going to the zero division error exception block. So here you can see this is handled differently. So different exceptions are being handled differently. Now we are able to identify also what is the type of exception, as well as we can handle them separately as well. Now if you can see, if the type error is occurring here, let's say some value, some string value I'm giving. So what will happen? Now it is not able to handle the type error because we have only handled index error and zero division error. So this is one way to ensure that no exception is being hidden because of our exception handling. Whenever we are handling the exception, we know which exact exception to be handled. And if there are some different exception due to some different parameters that should not be handled, we should be notified that in that situation we can have this particular approach where we are just handling specific exceptions, not all the exceptions. Now if I add this type error also, so it will be able to handle the type error as well, just like it is able to handle the other two errors. Now we can write some other message. Let's say b of 0 is non-numerical, and we can also print the exception over here. Now you can see that the type error is also handled with this third exception block. So this is how we can handle specific exception and we can avoid handling the unexpected exceptions. So that's it for today. In our next video, we will be talking about the else and the finally block in exception handling. Thanks for watching and keep learning, keep implementing.